Hey guys, welcome to the rollout. We have a very special edition for you guys today. It's just me. Genevieve's taking a break because we are doing a Veterans Day special. Today, for those of you who don't know, is Veterans Day. And so we've got a really exciting episode with two fantastic guests. But just to start it off, a little bit of news. For all of you Pathfinder fans out there, Pathfinder has just come out with the second edition beginner box, which has pretty much everything you could possibly need to get into Pathfinder. It's got a solo adventure for new players. It's got pre-generated character sheets, action cards, dice, a flip mat. So that looks really exciting. So if you always wanted to get into Pathfinder, now is your time to check it out. And again, this is not self-promotion, but a little self-promotion, but Elder Scrolls Online is now available for Xbox and PlayStation. You might be able to catch me in some of the new expansions that are out there. But also starting tomorrow, in honor of the drop of Marketh, is they are doing the Explorers Celebration Thursday through Monday, where you can get bonus XP, gold, drops. So that will be going on for the next 4 days. You'll get double gold for monster kills, and lots of other really cool things as you explore these new expansions that have been released. So make sure you check that out, as well. And of course, it was released on PC last week. So this week we are going to be talking about, the intersection between tabletop RPGs and helping veterans heal from PTSD and other mental illnesses. Obviously, that expands beyond the veteran community, but there is a lot of really exciting work happening within the veteran community. If you heard Chris's panel earlier today, he talked to the folks at Game to Grow. And now in my panel, I am having two amazing folks from the Wounded Warrior Project. We have Douglas Moore, who is a Marine Corps veteran. He joined the Marines in 2006, and he went to infantry school. He had a tour in Afghanistan from 2010 to 2011, where he was an infantry squad leader, and had a lot of leadership positions throughout his time in service, got out as a sergeant, and now works for Wounded Warrior Project. And then we have Benjamin Watkins, who was an Army veteran, go Army, who joined in 2001. He also joined as a PSYOP operations specialist, so psychological operations. And he deployed to Iraq with from part of the initial push in 2003. He got out in 2007 as E5, same time I did. I joined in 2004. I had a year deployment to Iraq from 05 to 06, also got out in 2007. And now these guys are doing amazing work with the Wounded Warrior Project, which, as you guys know, if you tune into all of our shows, is our official sponsor. We are proud to be part of the Stream to Serve squad. And this whole week is Warrior Week for the Wounded Warrior Project. So please check out all the amazing streamers that are streaming this week. Ben and Doug, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So before we really dive into kind of, what we're talking about, for you two, what was it like making the transition from, being in the service to now working for an organization that continues to serve veterans? Ben, if you want to kick it off, maybe?
Sure. So for myself, getting out in 2007, it was rough. I live in the Midwest. Didn't hear about Wounded Warrior Project as far as like if it was something that I could be a part of, because I was like, oh, I've got to be missing a limb, or I've got to have a severe trauma, physical issues, and just didn't understand because what it all took. I went through some pretty dark times because I just couldn't find anyone to connect with, and it was actually some Wounded Warrior Project documentaries that came out, and I was watching them and on YouTube, and a gentleman had PTSD, and he was talking about his transition and how Wounded Warrior Project had helped, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like that's me. I connect with this guy. So I literally jumped on the website after that show, and sent him my information, and at the time we had, it was called a peer mentor program. So I got teamed up with another veteran who served the same time I did. A lot of connections.
Mm-hmm.
And then they geared up what's called the peer support group, and which is still going on today in multiple locations. And he brought me over to the peer support group and joined that group. Later, I guess that would be like where I got a lot of healing, as far as like being able to say, hey, here's what happened to me, and connect with other vets who served it during my era and during my time. Because I know kind of holding back, when I got back from Iraq, I had been injured. It was a laceration to my leg. Went to the VA. I was the very first post 9/11 veteran to go to that VA. And
Wow.
things have changed from that interaction to today. Because when I went there first, they thought my dad had served and that I was there for a checkup because I maybe had TRICARE or something. And when I was like, nope, I'm actually here because I just got back from Iraq. So it's been fun to watch the journey of not only the VA grow and be able to help better our era, but also being able to be a part of Wounded Warrior Project once as a warrior. And if you see the logo, it's got one warrior being carried by another. I was on top. I had to be carried. I was a hot mess. And joined the peer support group. Later on became a peer support group leader. So transitioned to being the warrior on the bottom, to carrying my brothers and sisters. And about 3 years ago, position opened up. I threw my hat in the ring, went through the series of interviews, and now I get to work for this amazing organization and continue to serve my brothers and sisters. So having been an NCO in the Army, always making sure your soldiers are squared away, and if they have a dream, an aspiration, they have a school they want to go to, taking care of them. That was something I thoroughly enjoyed. I love the training them to survive aspect and to thrive. And here at Wounded Warrior Project, I get to do that day in and day out. And sometimes I chuckle because it's like I'm literally getting paid to hang out with my brothers and sisters. So it's an epic opportunity. So
that's amazing. That's such a beautiful story. Doug, what about you?
So I got out in 2013. And when I got out, I went back to school, finished up my degree, and then started in the corporate world for a little bit, and absolutely was not the place for me. So after a year or so in there, I got the opportunity to come out and start with Wounded Warrior Project, and it was just phenomenal. It really helped me, I think, in my transition, just for the fact that, like Ben, it was the culture aspect. It was being able to hang around like-minded people to really get back into that military culture that I think is so important, that camaraderie that we have a tendency of building. And that's one of those things that you just kind of miss a lot after you transition out of service. So being able to be back kind of in that environment around like-minded people that have had, similar experiences, it made it a lot easier for me as far as that transitional piece. And the biggest thing is just it gave me the opportunity to really give back to my brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, the Wounded Warrior Project, I remember just hearing about them because I also got out in 2007, and, they had just set up, the OEF, areas at the VA, and they were just still getting into things. So obviously you guys have grown so much over the past, 15 so years, and have so many different services that you offer to help veterans who are trying to heal physically, mentally. But obviously, the reason we're here right now and why we're, here on Fabled 42 is, there has been a lot of talk lately about how tabletop gaming, how role-playing can help push through some of these issues that are continuing to plague our veterans, mentally suffering, things like that. What is it that you think that is unique about tabletop role-playing games that you think is helping, serve as a catalyst to help, some of these veterans heal? Ben or Doug, if you want to jump off with that.
Ben, I'll go to you.
Yeah, sounds good. So I know for myself, we got tabletop games over here and we've got role playing.
Yeah.
For myself, I'm a huge advocate for role playing because that is where my healing began. Now, it wasn't with the tabletop. It was me sitting down and me being me, and then having somebody sit in the chair across from me, being the person who had offended me, and being able to talk to them and and knowing it wasn't really that person, but being able to say the things that I really needed to say to that individual, and
Right.
it dropped that anxiety and that fear. Now, transitioning that into role playing games, what I see, and again, Chris is working with us as well, and I'm going to highlight some of the games that we have played with him recently.
Yeah.
So, the last session last month, we had a situation, and Chris had no idea what he was, setting up because he didn't know everybody's background. But Chris, being a veteran himself, knowing he's got veterans playing in this game, set up a scenario where the team came in and they saw the enemy in front of them when they were slightly obvious. And when we began to, in a sense, engage them, we got flanked on both sides in game. So
Right.
in game, we are communicating, covering and moving and doing all the things that we were trained in the military. And we took care of the guys on the left, the right, and took care of the guys in the front. We, took some injuries, but nobody got horribly injured. And at the end of that session, one of the warriors said, I went through that exact scenario when I was in Afghanistan.
Wow.
We came into a situation and we got flanked on both sides. We couldn't go forward. And he's like, nobody communicated though. We were just shooting everywhere. And
Right.
he's like, we got out. He goes, we took some casualties, nobody died, but, injuries rather.
Yeah.
And he was like, this helped me heal and understand that it could have gotten different and it wasn't my fault. And
wow.
we really communicated well here. He goes, that's how I wish it would have happened. And now I can look back and go, guess what? I've gone through the same scenario and it went the way it should have gone. And so there was a connection to take, as Chris said, basically reinsert a new memory or recreate a new memory to heal that old damaged and broken, memory. So of how things should have been gone the way we were trained. And
Right.
it's when we're in combat, it's real. I mean, it's life or death.
Yeah.
And anxieties are through the roof and everything is, your senses are heightened. On the tabletop side, what you have is, though you may have that anxiety, you're in a safe place.
Right.
And though you might be engaging the enemy, my buddies are right next to me. Now we're doing it virtually, so they're left, right, and up, some around us. But like you have that ability to know they have my 6. I'm just rolling some dice here.
Right.
But at the same time, it's working through those emotions, and we are in a sense making new pathways in our brain healthy. So when that situation comes up in real life, so for example, let's say we go to the mall and we're walking and we see somebody we don't trust in front of us, and we look to the right and left, and we got hypervigilance going through the roof because maybe we have PTSD. We can go ahead and, after going through the role-playing aspect, be at tabletop, you go, oh, I got the situation. I've been through this in a healthy way. And so
Right.
it's doing that and seeing that it goes, that portion. One other thing we're doing too is, and John David couldn't be with us tonight, and he's an amazing CSRP. So that's our Combat Stress and Recovery Program teammate. So he really deals with the mental health side of things. And what he did is he piloted what I believe they're calling theater of the mind therapy. And so what they're doing is they're taking every single warrior that comes through it, and they're building the character. And so you're working through, like, okay, do I want to be a human? Do I want to be an elf? Do I want to be an orc? Do I want to? And you're picking and going through the D&D characters, and you're finding something that's similar with that character as yourself. And in a sense, you get added equipment or special abilities, or maybe a feature. You get bonuses for the more that you reveal of your own self into that character. And the reason why is you're going to use that character as a proxy for your own healing. And so we were able to see that in this last session that we did last night, actually with Chris. We have a warrior who chose to be a phoenix for the main reason he says, and he said it last night. He was like, I've chosen a phoenix because I have risen from the ashes of my PTSD. I am no longer what I used to be. And he's got the ability to fly, and he used that in game. And it was pretty fun. So it was really cool to see how he has taken on. And in this warrior, last night was his very first D&D game ever. So he went, and really embraced the idea of creating his character based on him, so that he could be a little bit more vulnerable and get healing in those, in a sense, broken and damaged emotions. So
wow. And it's in a safe place, because obviously, the big thing with a lot of veterans, and I was in the 101st. I served with almost entirely all infantry guys. You don't go to the doctor. You don't talk about your feelings. You don't do any of those things. And so this is kind of a non-threatening way in which to do that. Doug, I'd love to hear some of your insights on some of this as well.
Yeah, I think exactly like you said, right? Like the non-threatening portion, I think, is the good thing, because it allows you talk about things almost, it's like in a third person, right? Just the way that you kind of project that out onto the character that you're creating. So I think that allows you a level of vulnerability that you don't necessarily have if you're just really having to do that reflection on yourself kind of a deal. So just, it allows us to kind of to prick and pry a little bit and move some things around, and then put some good tools in place to be able to help manage some of those symptomology.
Right. Now, have you ever found that, have you ever had anyone pushing back? It's like, oh no, that's a geeky thing. I don't do the geeky thing. I don't know. Like for me, it seems like a natural transition to just be playing in D&D, because it's like, oh, we get to like do combat and blah, blah, blah. I mean, have you seen any kind of resistance to it? And then once they start playing, they're just like, oh, I get it. This is fun.
We actually have so many people coming out of the woodwork that want to do this. I haven't met anybody yet. That is like, I don't know about it. The one warrior who actually, it was his very first game ever. He was interested in it because he had heard so many other veterans talking about it, and he wanted to know what this was all about. And so he was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to jump in on it. And so that is what I think I'm seeing more is, I'm interested. I've never done this, which for a lot of vets, to jump into something completely foreign is a challenge in and of itself. Yeah. To be like, I'm putting myself out there in something I've never done before, because I really want, I think, what's on the other side. And that's one thing I do think that veterans have is this, I know in the Marine Corps they do it, because I've been reading a book actually with Doug. I know in the Army they did it, is press through. It sucks right now, but embrace the suck. And you're going to get through, and it's going to be awesome, Right. And so I think that if we as veterans, I know for myself, like I'm wanting to encourage every vet out there, whether you are post 9/11, pre 9/11, no matter what era you are, is you joined the service and you went through all the training for basic training, AIT, or whatever your school was, whether you were in combat, not in combat, you went through stuff that sucked, but you came out the other side and you survived. And if you can take that mentality of things that you did physically and push that towards that mental world, like, you know what, I'm going to press through. It's going to feel uncomfortable. I may break out in sweats. I might want to punch something. But like, knowing that I want that healing that's on the other side. And that's something too that, and Doug can really probably speak on this, is what we offer is called Project Odyssey, and that is a real life situation. So if Doug, if you wanted to touch a bit on Project Odyssey and what that's
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Project Odyssey, we're kind of doing, and this is one of the great things. If there's if there's any good that's came out of the pandemic, is that it's really highlighted some of these different delivery models, as far as
Yes.
being able to do things virtually, different platforms, not necessarily always having to do things face to face, which is cool. It's opened up a lot of opportunities. D&D being one of those big opportunities that we've been able to hit on. But right now we're doing Project Odysseys both face to face in certain particular areas, and then also virtually. So the face to face models, it's about a 5-day event, and you're going out and you're doing things surrounding. Like being outdoors, right? So you're doing rock climbing, you're doing kayaking, you're hiking and geocaching and all of that fun stuff. And then you're tying all of those different exercises back to building resiliency and like healthy coping
Right.
mechanisms that you can kind of utilize. And then there's a 12-week follow-up process that happens following that. The virtual Odyssey is a little bit different, obviously, with the
Right.
having to do things virtually, right? It's going to be a little bit different modality there. But it's it's about a 12-week 6 to 12-week program that we go through, and it's about 1 to 2 touch points per week. We do individual for males, individual females, and then also couples as well. So the individual ones more focus on obviously like you individually and developing that resiliency and those kind of healthy coping mechanisms. And then the couples ones more so focus on the communication that you need to kind of utilize in a relationship, right? And I think
Right.
those are the ones that we've really seen a lot of success here recently. Again, with the way the things kind of shifted here over the last 9 months with the pandemic, it's kind of surfaced up a lot of different things, and one of those is anytime you add stress onto an already stressful situation,
Yeah.
relationship problems tend to happen, and communication is the kind of one of the biggest barriers there. So being able to kind of learn how your partner communicates and then how you communicate and what you guys need from each other. So your person A, your partner's person B, the relationship is C, and focusing on that C portion, that has been incredibly successful, I think.
Right. I mean, and obviously the one thing I love about a lot of the programs that you guys offer, and then why I love role-playing games is, because there's been a lot of conversation the past couple of years about how medication is just being thrown at problems and people are over medicated. And especially with vets who are also dealing with physical injuries, they might start having to deal with opioid use and all of those types of things. And so finding a safe way in which people can address these problems in a non-medication way, not saying that medication isn't always necessary, but really getting to the root of it. Now, you've talked a bit about working with the VA and so forth. And one of the questions we just got in the chat is how, and you might not be able to easily talk about this, but how are you guys, or is anyone working to normalize the process of people who are still active duty working through these issues? Because I know when I was in, we're in Iraq and nobody's going to mental health because you just don't do that. And so like I was having to do physical therapy because I tore my rotator cuff while I was over there. And we all started kind of having like unofficial therapy sessions at physical therapy because it was a non-threatening environment in which we could talk about things without the stigma of going to mental health. Do you guys have any thoughts as to how people who might still be active duty can try and address this? I mean, maybe they can jump on a tabletop game or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we work a lot with like active duty, especially at the transition point. So when you're talking about I believe it used to be a WTU, I think it's SRU now is the acronym. It's a fun thing about the military is acronyms change every 5 seconds here, but
Yes.
but we work a lot with them, and we're really focusing in. I think we're working with TAPS right now to focus in on how do we meet people during those transition points so that we can kind of introduce them to some of the programs that we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think really addressing kind of getting on with with the active duty folks, those are people that are still eligible for our service as long as they've incurred an injury, illness, or wound coincident to their service. Then they're eligible to come on out, and they're able to participate in some of these different programs like Ben's been talking about here.
Yeah, because it seems like, now with, obviously Chris is helping run games for you guys. It seems like D&D would be a great non-stigmatizing way to get some of these people to start participating in these types of activities, again, without necessarily having to worry about their chain of command finding out that they're going to mental health. Oh no, I'm just going to play D&D. I'm not doing anything I'm not seeing a therapist. It's just D&D. I don't know. It seems kind of brilliant to me.
Yeah. So like last month's group, there was a lot of, so we have is not only just the session that's going on, we have a chat going on in the background all week long. And so you've got people that they're talking about their game and the interactions they had, how much fun they had, and then other things start coming up. And it's not like, ooh, it's wow, okay, cool, thank you for sharing that. Like, or hey, this happened in game and this reminded me of this, or hey, does anybody know where I can get help in this direction? And so what it's doing, it's building that camaraderie that we had in the military, that trust level with other people, because in a sense, you're in combat with these other individuals. And though it may not be like, I'm going to physically get wounded, I'm going to walk away with a hole in my arm now, it's my character went through this, and buddy, you showed up and you took care of me, and you showed up and you took care of me. There's that friendship that gets built again. So yeah, we are seeing, like, outside of just that, that session that might be 3 or 4 hours, that chat just takes off. And I left that. So that October session that we did, that chat's still going, and they're still sharing things. And that's one thing, like with the Project Odysseys that we've seen, is the individuals who go on those Project Odysseys, they're friends for life. They stay connected because you built that bond. And I think you're definitely hitting on something, Linsay, of doing the D&D, virtual right now as it has to be, and showing up. Hey, I'm just playing a game of D&D, and once the session's over, I don't know of any time that I've ever played where I'm like, all right, guys, good game, and got up from the table and just left. Yeah. It's like, wow, that was awesome. And then you sit down for like another hour and you talk about the game you got them playing, or you just chit chat back and forth. And that is one thing that I really miss about face to face and hanging out with my friends and around the table. But I have found that on the virtual side where, yeah, we got done with a session, but hey, camera's still up. We're just going to talk. Right. And, so we've had, and this is kudos to Chris, by the way. If you have ever watched him DM, he's very sensitive to what's happening with the characters in the game. And his ability to, like, he might want to go right, but he sees something happening with the player, he does a hard left because it's for the safety of that person, because they may have gotten triggered. And that to me is a skilled storyteller who can watch the players, and because everybody wants to have fun, and to be able to make sure they're having fun, but also to push them and to give them challenges. And so I know with again, we're just reflecting on the things that we've just done most recently, is seeing like that pilot group that went through that theater of the mind therapy, which then turned into some sessions. What we also did on the Wounded Warrior Project side is we are using, I'm not going to say the organization, but you can probably Google them and find them. We made miniatures. And so they went on and they custom built their miniatures to look like how they wanted to look. And then they sent them to Chris. And now what they're watching is live battle map with the character they made on this battle map, moving across, fighting a freaking Yeti, fighting like all these creatures. And then once the session's over, I get them back, and then I send them off to the Warriors, and they get that mini they could put it wherever they want to, but as a memory, you know, in a sense, memorabilia of that event, of those adventures that they went on, you know, in this, you know, brief time, and connecting with their brothers and sisters, and creating new memories. So it's not something that just is like it's gone. You have that tangible thing that you can hold, that you got to see, play with. So that's something that I know myself. I can't speak for other vets, but when I was in Iraq, yeah, I grabbed a few things. You know, it could have been money with Saddam's face on it. It might have been a little sand, you know, that came with me because it was everywhere. Like, but we all, yeah, I dumped out a duffel the other month, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is still here.
There's still Iraqi sand in there. Yep.
Yeah, it's like it burst. It's like a bag of plenty. But the ability to have something tangible, I think, is also good for people to be able to walk away with. And when you're going through that hard time, you know, you can look at that character on your desk, or you can you put it on your keychain, and things that are tangible, things that you can see, will jog your memory to be like, oh, that's right. I went through this in that game, and that was, I got through that. I can get through this here.
Yeah.
And like Doug had talked about on Project Odysseys about resiliency, that too is learned in gaming, you know, and it's also one thing that I saw actually happen last night, and Chris did such an amazing job with this. Is everybody's so excited? Wow, we're going to go through. We're just going to press on and go to the next thing. And I think in life, a lot of vets are like, drive on, keep going. Wow.
Drink water, drive on. I believe I heard that many times.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget to change your socks.
Yeah. Oh, and change your socks. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But when do we rest? When do we stop? When do we do self-care? And Chris, we had the group. We just had this amazing battle against the Kraken. We got off the boat. We went, you know, and did this, basically recon in the town. And now we're off on the next adventure. We had spell slots that hadn't been, taken care of. We had damage. We had people who were hurting, but we're just driving on. And Chris is like, hey, do you guys want to take a long rest?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh. And it's stuff like that that makes you kind of in outside the game. We in real life go, I think I need to take a rest. Yeah. I think I have a lot on my plate. And like, I know for myself, and Doug will attest to this, I'm the guy that's like full into it. Like, I can do 26 events in a month. Heck yeah, let's just do this. And he calls me up like, Ben, I know you're really good at this, but bro, slow down. Is there anybody else that can take some of these? And it's just that like, oh, wow. Well, thank you. I respect you for telling me to slow down. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that we want is accountability, just with our, outside, if you, a spouse, a friend, but even in the situation of gaming, of being like, wait a minute, I need to take care of my character. Oh,
and that's, that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons, honestly, why I love all the DMs that we have at Fabled 42, which you don't always see with everybody who plays D&D or other RPG games, is like, a lot of people are just like, it's all about the combat. But like, all the DMs that I have had the pleasure of working with here, and Chris and Diane and it's like, they take the time for those quiet moments, for those role-playing moments, because so much, like you said, so much can be revealed in those moments, and you can take the time to address things that you can't necessarily do when you're just focused on taking out the Kraken. And, being able to talk about, hey, this just happened. Now we need to process that. And what happened here is going to change trajectory of where we're going next. Cause and effect and consequences and all those things as well, which always come up with everything. But I love that you just brought that up, that, you need to take those quiet moments for yourself. And obviously this goes beyond just the veteran community. I mean, mental conditions in general. I know I've played games, with a group of women before, and we'll be at the end and we're like talking about very specific things dealing, with the female experience, and so PTSD and people who have dealt with sexual trauma and all of these different types of things. It is a safe way to kind of work through these. One question that someone brought up in chat, which is interesting. a lot of vets have issues dealing with physicality. They don't want to be touched. They sometimes, either get startled or uncomfortable if someone like slaps them on the back or things like that, which are obviously things that tend to happen a lot if they're doing, say, physical team building things, sports, things like that. It seems like this is a way for people to address some of these issues without having to deal with maybe some of the issues they're dealing with physical intimacy or even just physicality in general. What are your thoughts on, either of you, on helping people push through those kinds of obstacles that they have?
Yeah, I think one of the big things that we talk about is just meeting people where they're at. And that's a whole different slew of different like modalities to do that. And I think that's one of the great things that we've kind of seen come out of this whole kind of shift to the virtual realm, is being able to look at those different avenues in which we're able to meet individuals where they're comfortable, and then start the healing process there, right? Like you have to be able to meet that person where they're comfortable, before you're able to kind of get any substance in there, as far as even if it's the first step in that healing process. So
Right. Now, do you guys feel that things have gotten better over, since, Ben, you and I were in Iraq, obviously early on in the war, and it's now 15 years later. Have you seen a progression in how either society or the VA or just in general are treating veterans who are struggling with mental illness, and how veterans themselves are looking at themselves and maybe, hopefully not seeing it as something to be ashamed of?
yeah, I think I've definitely seen the stigma around mental health kind of decrease quite a bit, especially over the last like 5 or 6 years. It seems to be a little bit more accessible. The wait times to get in to actually see somebody has decreased quite a bit, and I think a large part of that is I've seen the VSOs that work within the veteran space have really kind of bonded together quite a bit, to fill in gaps, not only for each other, but also for the VA. And I think that's really just kind of helped streamline a lot of the veteran experience a little bit, and get into those particular services before you kind of just get bogged down. Previously, I remember, coming back from Afghanistan almost 10 years ago, and trying to go through the VA system and just being confused as all hell for a good, a good while.
Oh, my records were lost 3 times. 3 times they lost my records. Thankfully, I made photocopies.
That's true. My VA claim was the same way, where they were looking for my medical records for 2.5 years, and then sure enough, they open up my SRB, and there they are.
Right.
Funny how that works, but no, I think a lot of those issues have kind of been alleviated quite a bit, and it's a smoother transition. One of the things that I really credit that to is the fact that we have individuals like Ben that are able to kind of take people as they're coming out of that transition point and kind of walk them through, not only as, hey, I've been here before and this was my experience, and I can kind of tell you where maybe I had some pitfalls or some shortcomings, but to also kind of point out, because he's very knowledgeable about kind of all of the different services that are available. Hey, you may not even be thinking about this right now, but 6 months from now, you're going to be thinking about this. So it's time to kind of start that process now. So I think the big thing to continue that is just us as veterans really making sure that we're continuously looking back at those other individuals that are now starting that transition process to kind of help them out along the way.
Right. Now, Ben, you've been playing in some of these, veterans games, and obviously, we have vets playing in all different types of games. Do you feel like there is something different or special when it's just all vets playing together, as opposed to when you're, mixing it up with civilians.
Yes. There's definitely a different mentality. So case in point, there was a very similar situation that actually happened in Ecuador with the people who are playing in those series right now. That in a sense we went through. It was a camp, and we had to go in and basically rescue the princess. And we came into the situation. Chris had given us, like, as when the storyteller or the dungeon master gives you greater potions of healing, superior potions of healing, invisibility, you're like, this is not going to be good. So he gave us these things, and we had somebody who was playing a ranger who had a broom, so an airborne ranger, and she flew up and she took a high level view, looked at the camp, came down, described what she saw, and then we sprinkled the invisibility on us, and we went ahead and booby trapped the entire camp. And we had the whole sleight of hand, stealth checks. We did a great job. One guy did roll really bad, fell down in the snow. And then the guy, if you know Chris, when he's trying to do something, sometimes rolls really poor for perception. And so we got everything set up, and we had a character up on the ledge, and basically it said, okay, because we're all going invisible, we won't be able to see each other, we can't communicate with each other. In 15 minutes, I want you to go ahead, hit fairy fire up on that this little ledge, and I'll be there. And so sure enough, fairy fired it, blew a horn, caused mass chaos. We took out everybody in that camp, and no one got a single point of damage. And is because it's just the strategy, I think, of war, of okay, I'm going to go this direction, you're going to go this way, cover and move, we're going to adapt, we're going to overcome, and applying those things that on the civilian side, you were never taught that. You were never taught how to look at a battle map, decipher, okay, here are the points of entry, here are possible, enemy targets, here's how we're going to neutralize this situation, here's how we're going to cause chaos here, here's how we're going to funnel them in this direction, and we're just going to pick them off. And so there's definitely a different mentality. Now, I will say, we sat for an hour and discussed what we were going to do before we went in and did it.
Right.
Now, being downrange, and for those of you who are watching that don't understand the phrase downrange, it means you are deployed or you are in combat. You're in the thick of it. When you're downrange, sometimes you don't have the convenience and the ability to go ahead and have an hour to talk about what you're going to go do. Sometimes it's like, the bad guy's there, we got to execute, go. But on those types of orders, we can fall back on our training and go, all right, we're going to stack up like this. We've cleared rooms before. You're going to go left, you're going to go right, you're going to go here, and you execute. And so that there's definitely a different mentality that I've seen. But what I've also seen is veterans who do play with civilians kind of going, they're coaching, hey, nudge, nudge, think about this. And it's fun to see people who were not in the military go, oh, yeah. And they start implementing, because when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game where there's melee combat, there is a direct correlation to those of us who are in the Marines or the Army, or even Navy, Coast Guard, I'm sorry, Air Force. Yep. So, but that's flying planes. It's a different, you're trained to fight, and you're trained to look for, when I went through, my schooling, the first book I got when I got off the bus to AIT was the Ranger Handbook. You're going to want this, know? And so I walked around with the freaking Ranger Handbook in my side pouch, it's curled up and tabbed and highlighted. And it taught you how to, go and do situations. So yeah, a long explanation. Yes.
No, it isn't. No, because I've experienced similar things where when you're playing with all vets, it's you go into those combat moments with very tactical mindset and thinking about things you might not otherwise thinking about, because, or at least for those of us, who did go to combat and had to train in clearing houses and all of those things. It's really, it's an interesting way to look at a silly game.
Right.
Now, for Doug or Ben, what do you think it is specifically about being able to role play that helps open up some of these neural pathways and, help people move forward with healing, as opposed to just, say, sitting in a group and talking about your experiences, but instead, putting on this persona and immersing yourself in this fantasy world, and then working through things?
I think what you just said is immersing.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into that character, though, as much as you want to be that character, maybe separate from yourself, you will always bring you with, and you're always going to be there. And it might be the subconscious of the character, but you're going to make choices. Now, when things are happening in game, they're still going to hit your brain as they would in real life and hit those same neurological pathways of, okay, example. My first initial portion of the push into Iraq, our convoy got stopped and we took on fire. And there was a round that zinged across the hood of my Humvee. I couldn't go anywhere. Right. I'm literally waiting for the next round. Now, initial push, we're not up armored. We have none of the nice features.
Oh no, you guys had, yeah.
we had cloth doors,
You had body armor from Desert Storm. Yeah.
Yes. So that mentality of oh my goodness, and being in game and having and again, this is Chris's ability to really throw things out, and him being a vet, he thinks like one when he's putting the games together. Is the arrow came right in front of you, dashed off the tree that you're trying to hide behind, and it's whoa, okay. And he even does and it kind of is off of it, and it's did you have to use the vocal sound effect, Chris? Thank you very much.
It's not triggering at all.
It's not triggering. Thanks, Chris. I'm sweating now. But it's stuff like that what happens in game is going to, whether you like it or not, trigger those same neurological pathways in you as the real individual. And you are going to really shift hard to stay in character and be well, this is how this character would operate. Or you might be this is what I'm doing, so another example from last night's session. We had one character wanting to almost PvP another character on the team. And you had another warrior being you put your hands on him, I'm going to slap you crazy with this axe. And it was whoa. And Chris did a great job. He's all right, let's roll this through, and he used the dice to roll through the conflict, and after the game, I got to talk with that warrior, and he's hey, I didn't mean anything against you. It was just kind of something I thought my character would do. It's huh. But my thought was, what about that other warrior?
Right.
Why did he was you put your hands on him. I'm going to, now I'm going to circle back. I'm going to talk with that guy and be hey man, how you doing? And it's just being cognizant of, hey, this was just happening, and being able to catch yourself going, oh, wow, that ties back with this memory. And going back to what we said at the beginning of this interview of replacing those negative memories with positive ones, it changing the outcome of this is what happened in the past, but hey, this happened again in a sense, but the outcome was much better. And I think that's where, coming back to the role playing and the neurological pathways of it, just I was once told this is memories are like dogs. The more you visit it, the more power you give it. But if you don't visit a toxic memory, it will remain toxic. Then the way to get rid of a toxic memory is to walk it into a better direction. And so when you hit that negative memory, you are going, that was negative, but this is what it means to me now. And using that negative memory to be that actually made me stronger, not weaker.
Right.
And it can cause some anxiety. It can cause some fear. And being able to recognize like, yep, I'm getting hit by fear right now, but I don't have to operate in that fear. I acknowledge it, but I'm not going to operate in it is a whole other, basically skill set. And I've seen a lot of the warriors that we have already done this with going through role playing, going, in past this would have, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I understand now. And so, I see that, again, we're talking about veterans, but I see that outside just the veteran community, just with role playing as a whole, when people go into it, one, you can have fun and absolutely, have a great time doing it, but you're going to walk away learning something if you want to.
Right. So. Doug, what is something that you wish civilians would understand about veterans going through the healing process, or things that you've come in, that you've learned from over the years in dealing with the veteran community? Is there anything specifically that you think, would help civilians better understand how to, either understand or at least, adapt to veterans going through this healing process?
Yeah, I think two things. So number one, it starts with empathy, right? Like with anything, right? It's being able to kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes, be able to kind of hear and listen to what that experience was. And then, being able to kind of imagine yourself in that experience as well and how you would kind of react is the first part. And then the second part is just to know that it's not a one size fits all. There's not a one size fits all. Here's the magic pill that's going to, make you go down this kind of healing process. It goes through multitudes of different routes. So really just being flexible with that individual and being able to kind of, again, getting into that meeting them where they're at portion, being able to just say, hey, all right, well, this seems like something that's working for you. And yeah, maybe I heard that this is working so-and-so over here, but that might not be conducive to you. So it's not like a cookie cutter approach, and you really have to try a few things. And I think sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating because, we're used to, right? Like, hey, there's something wrong. So I'm just going to go here. It's going to get fixed. You guys tell me what to do. I'll do it. I'll knock it out.
Ibuprofen, it fixes everything.
Right. Motrin, water, I'll knock it all out of the park here. Exactly. Hey, if you got to tell me that I got to do meditation once a morning and that's going to, whatever, if that's going to do the trick for me, right? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But that's not the way that this process works. Right? Like it's a lot of the experimenting a little bit and seeing the certain things that work and kind of like pulling those little things. So I look at it a lot like the way that we look at like leadership. I'm sure both of you guys had leaders within like multiple leaders when you guys were in the Army, and kind of pulling a little bit of like, this is a trait that I really like, and I'm gonna keep this one. Here's something that really didn't work for me, and I don't want to incorporate that moving forward. And therapy and that healing process is really the same, right? It's pulling those little pieces that work and keeping those in that tool belt, and then it's discarding the ones that, hey, this thing didn't work for me, and that's okay, it didn't work.
Right. Well, and I think that's one thing that I love that you brought that up. And one of the reasons I love what the Wounded Warrior Project does is that everyone who is going through this mental healing process, it's a very personal thing. And it's not a cookie cutter approach. What works for one person doesn't work for another. Meditation might be great for this person. Group therapy might be great for this person. Dungeons and Dragons might be great for this person. And I think that's the thing I've seen, especially with the programs that you guys offer, is that there's so many more options than there were when we got out in 2007. And geez, when people were getting out from Vietnam and from Korea, it's just, it's no longer just, well, go talk to this guy and take this pill and you're great. It's like, no. Let's find the approach that works for you so you can work through this process. Ben, just real quick before we have to sign off here, for, any of the veterans that we have in our chat here who are listening, maybe who hasn't haven't started dealing with things, what are some thoughts or words of, I hate saying advice, but what are some thoughts you have as to, someone who might be tuning in who hasn't quite dipped their toe in the,
I'll put on the wise wizard Gandalf hat. Well, everyone, here's what you must do. Reach out to Benjamin at Wounded Warrior Project. One, if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, I'm on Fable 42's Discord channel, WWP Benjamin. You can hit me up there. If you want, you can, Chris, I think, or Linsay, you can put my email in the chat as well. It's B Watkins, Bravo, Whiskey, Alpha, Tango, Kilo, India, Nevada, Sierra at woundedwarriorproject.org. I just totally rattled off that.
And for all of you civilians, you have no idea what he just said, but we get it.
I just phonetically gave hey, there you go. If you have, if you're going through anything and you don't think anybody's there to hear you out, try me. There's another person out there that has gone through it. If you need an ear, we're here. One thing I love about Wounded Warrior Project is we pilot so many things. And because we are 100% donor dollar base, we will go different directions. And it's like, oh, hey, that's not working. Kill it. Do this now. And we're very innovative. The things that we've come up with just in this last year have been phenomenal, and doing this D&D, this is a pilot and we're checking it out. And it's the feedback we're getting is really good. And so it's stuff like this that I love about the organization, is that we're fluid, we're flexible, and we're willing to meet people, like Doug has been saying. We meet people where they're at. So and for one, I thank the Fable 42 community for letting me come in, and I've met other vets here, and we've chatted, and I'm all about that. Hit me up. If I don't respond, give me a little bit. I'll get back to you. But it's something that I would encourage everybody. If you're post 9/11, if you're wondering, do I even qualify? I don't think I have an injury. Let's look at it. Let's take a look, and because there's a good chance you do. Or if you're currently serving, you're currently in the military, hit us up. We have resources that we can be like, hey, let's point you in this direction, so we set you up for success. And that would be the NCO and myself being like, let's set you up for success. Yes. So if you're currently serving, you have served, both good reasons to reach out. If you are on that verge of transitioning, definitely hit us up, so we can tell you, this is the paperwork you want. This is what you want to do before you exit out. So that when you end up going to the VA and they ask you for whatever paperwork, you're like, I've got that. So
exactly. And I will also just add in, just for if there's any female veterans tuning in, the Wounded Warrior Project also has amazing programs that are targeted especially at female veterans. Because, we obviously all have very similar experiences, but a lot of female vets have experiences that are very unique to them. So that is something that I also just wanted to give a shout out to. Doug, Ben, thank you so much for joining this. This was amazing. You had so many insights, and just your wealth of knowledge was just incredible. And, like my mom always says, if you can just help one person, then that's enough. But you guys are obviously helping so many people. And all of you who tuned in, thank you so much. Please consider, donating to Wounded Warrior Project, because they are an amazing organization. Right now, enter Warrior into the chat for the raffle, which Chris will be giving away, because of course, come back here in 30 minutes for Realms of Ukador at 6:30 Pacific time, 9:30 Eastern time. And next week Genevieve and I will be back here for another episode. We're going to have Jessica Drew on the show, who is a game designer at Blizzard. And she is also an amazing cosplayer, photographer, costume designer. So she's part of our series, Leveling Up, Turning Your Passion into a Business. So we will see you all again next week. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.